Amendment number 53, printed in Part B of House Report number 113-108, offered by Mr. Walz of Minnesota.
Pursuant to House Resolution 260, the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Walz, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Minnesota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield myself as much time as I may consume. Sergeant Chuck Luther joined the Army after the 9/11 attacks. He served in Iraq until a mortar round hit near him, knocking him unconscious. What followed were classic symptoms of traumatic brain injury: blurred vision, chronic pain, trouble concentrating. Liz Luris served this nation honorably as a soldier in the United States Army. She survived a rape at the hands of her fellow service member. She did her best to continue her military service with a dream of attending West Point. She was raped 2 more times, with police reports and hospital visits to prove it. I know each of my colleagues here would expect that each of these warriors receive the best care this nation could provide. Sadly, the reality is far from that. Along with Liz and Chuck, since 2001, over 31,000 of our warriors have been discharged from the military without benefits because they were determined to have a personality or an adjustment disorder. These are considered pre-existing conditions, which meant they should have never been allowed to enlist in the first place. And even though Sergeant Luther had multiple mental health evaluations, served honorably for a decade, it was only after the mortar attack that the military determined he had a pre-existing condition, casually threw him away, and denied him benefits and health care. A 2008 GAO study concluded that at least 40% of these personality discharges were handed down without going through the proper Department of Defense process. That means without the service member being diagnosed by a licensed mental health professional, without the service member receiving notification of their discharge, and without the service member receiving any formal counseling. 5 years after this report, Congress has done nothing to ensure that these service members' records are reviewed or corrected, or to ensure that they receive the care that they earned serving this nation. This week, Mr. Denham and I presented an amendment to this bill that would have allowed these warriors the basic appeal process to determine if they were improperly discharged. This amendment's the same as a bill I have, H.R. 975. This would only afford these warriors basic rights and due processes, the same ones that they put their lives on the line for that we had. That amendment was not allowed to come to this floor for debate or a vote. Shame on us. A second amendment I offered would have simply put a moratorium on this process till we understand why it's being done and what's happening. That amendment was not allowed to come to this floor to be debated or voted on it. Shame on us. Now, I want to be clear. The chairman and the ranking member of this committee had nothing to do with those decisions. And I am appreciative that they allowed the amendment that I'm debating today to be brought here. That's going to allow us to do another GAO study to determine if the problem is still there. Fine and good. But I'll tell you what, Chuck Luther doesn't want to study. He wants justice. Liz Luther doesn't want to study. She wants justice. The American people don't want another study. They want justice for their warriors. I would ask each of my colleagues, go home this weekend. Ask your constituents if they think this is fair and if they want to study, or if they'd rather do what's right and take care of these warriors. I'd also challenge my colleagues to ask the question, why wasn't the amendment made in order? Why couldn't we debate other than a study? So I ask my colleagues, support this amendment. It's something. It'll let us know what the scope of this self-inflicted injury and tragedy to our nation is. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough. We should be ashamed that we've not shown Liz and Chuck the same respect and courage that they showed us as a nation to serve in uniform. I, for one, not going to rest until justice is served, our warriors are cared for, and this wrong is made right. I reserve the balance of my time, Madam Chair.